there's so much noises out there in the marketplace, and we have been receiving tons and tons of messages and calls from various consumers, clients, investors, homeowners, like maybe you yourself who have been following the channel, have reached out and wanting to kind of get a little bit more clarity about what is actually happening in the marketplace, not just about Singapore right now, it's affecting the entire global situation. So there's a lot of disruptions that we are seeing. And that's the reason why I want to do this video to give you all a little bit more clarity about what is actually happening. A tariff basically is a duty imposed by the government on import of goods. Also now you have all the various country trying to negotiate, trying to do different things. So it's almost like you're watching drama. How many of you find that this is like watching drama? Okay, it's like you go online and then you start hearing one thing and then the next thing things change, then the Congress start firing on people, talking about people. So it's kind of drama lah, or it's quite drama. But I believe in the under context of it, whether you are a first time homeowner or you already own a property, news like this will still deter us, no matter how experienced we are, no matter how many properties we own or how many transactions we have done. So this is also something that it will hit us because we're all human beings, right? Whenever we hit with negativity in the marketplace, the first reaction, we are worried, we are concerned, we are very fearful that our livelihood, our jobs, employment, everything will suddenly become, oh, I need to be extra careful. I think this is the fundamental of why I constantly do videos like this, because at every single time in the marketplace, there are different strategies that we need to apply. But ultimately, the fundamentals still stay the same. And a lot of times when we make the mistakes in the property market, it's not due to all the market sentiments, but it's largely due to our lack of knowledge and our lack of understanding of what we should be doing. And perhaps due to whatever reason, we do it differently. And then that's how we make mistakes. All right, so the channel is really to educate you all in how we can continue to stay relevant and how we can equip ourselves with all the understanding, information, research, data, and numbers to equip us to make informed decision later on. Right, so tariffs is really just a form of revenue, and during this period, or should I say in the past, even for tariffs, it has become a kind of a negotiation tool, okay, to different nations. And it involves different foreign trades, policies, and to basically encourage safeguarding the domestic industry of different countries. And because Singapore is so small, right, so that is the reason why you may have read papers and hear about people talking about free trade with various countries. And Singapore do need that. Can you imagine if Singapore don't have, I mean, we don't have raw materials, we don't have resources. And if we don't engage in free trade arrangements, then the cost of our items, everything, daily items, goods, products, everything will increase in prices. So that's also one of the reasons why we're so nice to everybody and everybody's so nice to us. So this is something being built. So let me just briefly give you a quick overview of how tariffs work. So let's just use a bottle of wine for $50. So if let's say a foreign winemaker produce a $50 bottle of wine and the tariffs of 10%, the minimum tariffs at this moment are due, then it's been paid to the government. So then the overall price of this wine becomes what? $55. So this is a very simple understanding of how tariffs work. But I'm not concerned about the cost of increase. I'm more concerned about is how do they dealt with the cost of the increase? How do they dealt with this extra tariff that they're supposed to pay? So we have countries that will hit at least 46%. We have 30%. Of course, Singapore have been hit with the minimum of 10%, but yet we are still on the board. Okay, so but who will end up paying? Who will end up paying usually? So on the easy understanding is consumers, consumers like you and me. So every cost will be funneled down to us. But there's a lot more that we can expect. Okay, again, we are not here to say that this will happen, but ultimately there are three structures that potentially can happen. And I want you to take on the mind of whether you are the company, whether you are a business. I want you to take on the mind that if let's say you are being hit with a 10% tariff based on this example, will you be A? Okay, you as a company, you absorb the price, the cost, the tariff, and then you sell to the consumers at lower profits. You ask yourself, will you do it or not? Okay. Or second is, will you absorb part of the cost? Okay, let's do a win-win situation. We do 50-50 law. I take half, you take half. Let us happy-go-lucky together. Okay, although there's still an increase in cost to the consumer, but now it's 50%. Or you'll be a business where you hardcore, you don't care about anything, you just everything in for yourself. The company just increase the prices, increase the tariff, maybe even add on extra profits they want, and then just sell it at a higher cost. Of course, that will also result in the business or the product being not favorable because it may be too overpriced, consumers may end up not buying. So there are many different situations happening. So why am I sharing with you this? Because what is happening to tariff will indirectly also affect Singapore. We are not seeing a direct impact, but because all the goods, all these items will increase in overall. And what about property sector? Property sector, we're looking at a few things. We're talking about raw materials, we're talking about building materials, your equipment, and later on we'll cover a little bit deeper. And let me share with you, while it may seem like the um, impact in terms of tariffs across the world will definitely also impact Singapore and affect us, right? Um, there's a silver lining that after my research, I realized that it may not be as crazy as it seems. Okay, even though all these raw materials, most of the time we are importing from overseas. Okay, we're overseas, and that's why this tariff, and it's not only just one or two countries, it's a lot, is going to disrupt the supply chain. And when it's disrupt a very nicely connected supply chain, things will happen. So no longer in the past where the industrial and manufacturing generation is, right? Everything is controlled in one country, right? You build, you package, you everything label, everything is in one. But right now it's different. Your iPhone is done in Vietnam, iPhone is done in China, and then it's being shipped to India to assemble. And so parts come from different places, assembly also from different places, then it's being shipped out to the various countries. And that's the reason why when this trade supply chain are being scrutinized like right now, we are foreseeing that supply chain will definitely be affected. And this is not the first time it happened. It's not the first time. But this time around, it consists of more countries. So which is why it takes on a bigger notice. The last one was actually in 2018, 2019, where the US and China trade war was going on. So it's very similar. It's just that this time around, it's taking a little bit more notice because everyone is involved. And it's kind of like my whole supply chain, you take off one supply chain, one middleman inside, that's it. Everything gone case, everything screwed up. So that's what we want to understand is today is still a very early stage, but we want to be overly prepared to see how this will affect us as a homeowner, or even today, maybe you are intending to enter into the property market and you have been researching for the last couple of weeks or months, and you're ready to do it. And then, bam, this news came in, you suddenly, hey, maybe I should re-look into it. So I hope that this video can also give you some insights from a very logical and fundamental approach. Okay. So of course, our PM Wong already highlighted that it will definitely impact our Singapore's growth, which was projected about 3 to 4% originally, but I think now it's going to be adjusted downwards definitely. And that not only that, it was concerning or that a full-blown global trade war may be in mind. But yet again, there's also something that if you have been following Trump's administration for the first term and here, there's certain similarity of how he performed his things. Of course, I'm not here to do politics, okay, but by understanding some of all these, what do you call it, adjustments in terms of policies, in terms of trade situations, even though it's property in Singapore, we still need to kind of look at it and what are the effects that's happened. Because overnight this happens, everything red. Okay, so your worry is also my worry, it's also the developer worry, it's also the government's worry. So everyone is also concerned and wondering what is going to happen. And everybody is standing on their toes to kind of make sure that, hey, let us see how we can adjust out of this situation. So of course the tariffs, of course this is really outdated news. Or in the span of 24 hours, things change. So originally China was only hit with 34%. And Singapore, of course, being the minimum only 10%, right? Then overnight, this happened at wow, Trump raised the tariff on Chinese imports to 125% from the original 104%. Wow, so it's like the rock versus the rock kind of situation. You increase, I also increase. Then we don't know how this one will go, maybe to 1,000% also possible. All right. So this is between the two biggest, largest economies. All right. So it's, I mean, of course, like I say, I'm not in politics, but it seems a little bit crazy, and that two superpowers are doing this where a lot of the smaller so-called, we are like the small businesses out there, we are the one who suffers, the consumers are the one suffers, the people suffer. Okay. So when China retaliate with a 84% tariff up from the 34%, wow, then all crazy lah. So if you can see here, there are countries that's trying to negotiate. There are countries that already offer concessions. So it's interesting that the one that retaliate is China and Canada, and EU is still thinking, to don't know. So, all right. So of course, then what happened was, because of this, the latest news was that this is a quote from our U.S. president. I thought that people were jumping a little bit out of line. They were getting a little bit yippy, he added. Okay, so that's how he suddenly came out, 90 days tariff pause. But of course, China's side still hit lah. But the rest all 90 days. Because in the terms of what he highlighted is the others are willing to come forth to negotiate, all right, to open up a discussion. I think that is what he is looking at. Again, I'm not going in this deep, because ultimately, whatever happens there, it happens already. It will continue to happen. But what kind of impact it has on us is why we want to look at the short-term impact. Okay, how tariffs could affect our construction costs, our supply, later on we will cover, as well as our sentiment in the marketplace. So let's us touch on the first thing, which is the construction cost per se. Okay, so construction cost is a ecosystem. You cannot run away from not having materials, not having equipments and all. And it is very well connected with a lot of international supply chain. We import with other places. And if other places, for example, you import steel, aluminium from, let's say, Vietnam, example, but if they are also hit with the tariff, that means their cost of production increases, their logistic increases, which means that if we want to import from them, our costs also increase. So that is why it may not be a direct impact with this US tariff, but the nation around the world, we are basically getting goods from them. All right, because Singapore don't have raw materials, so we are all importing them from it. Maybe exact sand, maybe not all, but most, some of the sand Singapore we have, but not all. I think we still import quite a fair bit, which disrupted. And this indirect impact is where we are going to see cost increase. And when cost increase, we have to start looking at the fundamentals. Okay, the equipments, vehicles, your cranes, your trucks, all these things that we need to import from overseas to come into Singapore will increase. And so from a disruption of supply chain, you can view it two ways. First, you can look at it that, cost, everything goes up. But at the same time, if you ask me, it also offers an opportunity to streamline the process, and which is what Singapore does very, very well. Okay, so Singapore being Singapore, right, we are very small, and we are so small enough to be very agile. We can adjust, we can change, we can put in new implementations very quickly overnight regarding our processes, regarding our way of working. Okay, and the history in the past have proven that we react, not only to react, we react to the situation, that's one, but we overly prepared ahead of time. Okay, so this is something that I always favor, why we are able to bounce back faster than a lot of people. Okay, and that is due to all the various policies in place, and being small, we can implement things fast. We can really, and I will share a little bit more in that, which aspect. So if today you enjoy this kind of conversation and this kind of video that we go in depth about world events, maybe you can also share with us what kind of topics generally in property you like to hear more, so that we can create videos specifically for you. Generally still Singapore property market, but maybe there are certain segments or certain concerns or questions that you have about property that you like us to do more research on and share with you our insights. So if you like that, you can just comment what are the questions that you have. And remember to subscribe and like this video so that you can continue following us. Okay? Yeah, so based on that, right, the other thing is that one saving grace, if you ask me, is that because we already uh, lack of raw materials and everything, and the impact of building and construction is very, very real. And the key thing is that this has happened before. And one of the reasons why right now, if you can see, it's a little bit different from when COVID times is. COVID times was everything stands still. Nothing comes in, nothing goes out. So construction, everything stops. So that is the reason why there's a form of delay and there's a lack of supply during that period. It was a total standstill. But this time around with the tariffs is a little different. There's still movement. Okay, there's still movement. And the major aspect, if you talk about property, right, is the construction itself, the building itself. So if the developer's cost of construction increases, then no doubt this cost will be passed on to the consumers, whether it's 50%, 30%, we don't know. Ultimately, because they bought the land from the government already at a fixed price, okay, ahead. Then one of the key things why I don't see that impact as big, should I say the construction cost increasing? Yes, it did increase the last couple of years. Why? Because overall inflation increases the prices, that's one. And also at the same time, you can understand the raw material cost increase. And part of the raw material cost increase is also because of inflation. And of course, there's GST also, you see. So the key thing is that Singapore has already moved into prefab, okay, prefab for constructions, whether it's HDB and condo, and this has been going on for many, many years. So one thing that I realized is that why am I so confident that the prices, no doubt it will still increase, it will not be like crazy. Because if we talk about the entire supply chain situation, right, and PPVC, right, has to be constructed, we also have this concern, hey, if it's overseas, then we have to what? Import this PPVC from overseas in Singapore. So interestingly, when my research shows, right, actually the building components in the entire unit are actually fabricated offsite and are in factories in Singapore and Malaysia. So Singapore and Malaysia are the one building all these PPVC and then transported over the causeway, right, to be assembled in Singapore. So this is huge. Can you imagine if, let's say, we don't have all this prefab, right? Wow, then we have to import a lot more things, more materials, more raw materials from overseas into Singapore, which will result in even higher costs. So why is this huge? Because it's almost like we are self-contained in the construction side. And construction still is the number one input to our GDP. Okay. And so this actually gives me a deeper understanding and a unique overview of how Singapore adjusts to major situations. Okay, I think this is very, very interesting when I'm looking at it. And why do I say so? And so the question is, it has happened before that during a certain crisis, Singapore make adjustments quickly. Okay, not only for now, not only for short term or once the crisis finish, oh, this one is over. They actually take a very long-term outlook to say that, hey, since this has happened, shall we relook into our plans and can we inject a longer term approach in this? And this is clearly seen when COVID. Okay, I can share with you, COVID actually resulted in a lot of new guidelines, a lot of new initiatives in Singapore because we are so small that we are so worried that things will happen again. So one of the key things I want to draw your attention, an example is during the the COVID situation. So the entire COVID, right, impacted our entire food chain. And because we import over 90% of our food from over 180 over countries, okay? And this has been the way for many, many years. And it has been adequate enough for us, whether it's climate change or anything. But when COVID hits, it suddenly cut off our supply chain because of that. And that is also a reason, one of the key things that earlier on government already wanting to set up. If you don't know, there is this 30 by 30 goal that was set up, a green plan under the food element. So the idea is to boost local food production to meet 30% of the nation's needs by 2030. And this has a foresight to align with when our food supply chain was cut off, everything goes up high. And now we are trying to say that, hey, can we self-sustain it a little bit? Again, we are not saying that we are able to do it 100% of everything. So this was introduced during COVID period, after COVID. So during COVID, right, a lot of people always complain about COVID, but I can see a lot of other initiative that's been done, right, that it speeds up the process of certain initiative that we want to do. And with one keyword, self-sustain. How can we be self-sustained? So food was an issue then, we created. So the same thing goes for every crisis that I see, that Singapore is able to come out of the box, right? Think a longer aspect to move forward. So that's why I'm not so shocked, okay, when this thing happened, and perhaps government have a bigger plan to really look inwards, right, into major manufacturing person to supply. Perhaps that's one. And what I project also is that not only people, I mean, Singapore setting up our own manufacturing and production, that kind of stuff, but at the same time, because of this, Singapore always stands out being a safe haven, being a very secure country, right? Maybe other countries will start looking at Singapore to start setting up their manufacturing plant as well. Okay, again, I'm not in politics, but I'm looking at it from a sensible business aspect, that this potentially could also be giving a boost to Singapore economy. Of course, everything is still too early to say. Maybe one overnight, he just say nothing happens, everything back to square one, everybody go happy go lucky lah. Okay, but the impact is really there. But it's too early to tell because we have a 90-day pause. Who knows what he will do? Okay, but again, I always share, for property side, we are always wanted to be overly prepared and underprepared. Also, the same goes for every client that we work with. In terms of the property assessment, financial assessment, and the research, we always do more, and we over prepare ourselves so that we can lower down the risk of you entering the market as much as possible. And later on, we will study a little bit of what is actually happening, so you have a better idea of how the impact is on us, and is it really that scary that we have to really go into our bomb shelter, that kind of situation. Okay, because underutilized ma, maybe need to use, we also won't know. But I mean, it's not to that extreme lah, the way I see. But of course, this is my opinion. Today's video is really what I've researched and what I can connect the dots so that I can share with you all some of this deeper understanding, not just based on guessing, not just based on seeing the newspaper headlines, but by going deeper into the research. But one of the key things that I believe will happen is the low supply of the property market. Okay, the low supply. So, but question is, why do I put a question mark there? Okay, so unlike a lot of situations whenever we look at all this, any crisis that happen, property will be the first one to hit, and the next thing as consumers, as homeowners, we will start saying, wow, prices going to come down, prices going to crash. Then if things happen that way, you and I, our property also will suffer the same state. So why would we want that to happen? Actually, we don't want that to happen. But it is still a very common human behavior. Yeah, so when news came out like this, unlike COVID, where everything stands still, remember, COVID is no in, no out, nothing. Tariffs still, there are still movements going on. Because in COVID, when it happened, there was no GLS land supply at all. No, zero. Okay, after the first 2 plot or 3 plot, if I'm not mistaken, everything stands still for the next 2 years. And that's what's constitute to one of the reasons why prices increased after 2021. Okay, prices went up. But for this time, when the release of tariffs is there, GLS sites was launched 1 day later. Okay, so you may have read news about the Lakeside, Danyan, and Woodlands Drive are released for sale. So whenever things contradict, I tell you, I'm very capable, and I'm also very curious. Hey, why is this things, when it's supposed to be everything kind of come to a standstill, right? Why the government still so positive or gung ho is how you want to see it, to put out 3 plots of land to purchase? Okay, so if they are concerned, then they should halt everything, don't do anything until it gets a little bit clearer, then they move forward. So I have one conclusion. Okay, one conclusion is that no matter what happens externally, our internal Singapore market, whether it's in terms of population, in terms of job employment and property, still need to function as per normal. Okay, and later on I will explain a little bit on the supply and demand as an indicator later. So we will have a clearer view on what is the impact on you and me. So one of the key mistakes a lot of homeowners make, or should I say consumers make, is that whenever there's such a crisis, inverted comma, crisis, we only see the price drop law, crash law, prices come down. And this fear is very common. So the question is, so we are always worried, what if I buy today, then tomorrow prices come down, just like stock market. Overnight, you wake up, everything from green becomes red. Or then you shock. Then overnight again, it goes back to green, that kind of situation. So take note. So this is something I want you all to take note. When these GLS 3 sites are being released, it's not an immediate supply of properties into the marketplace. Okay? This supply of GLS is towards the number of properties required, not now, but 3 years or 4 years down the road. Okay, because there's still construction phases. So sometimes a lot of homeowners that I talk to, they always have this misrepresentation that there's a lot of supply in the marketplace. Because you combine the current launches, you combine the current balance unit that is not sold, and then you combine the GLS supply all lumped together, of course, it seems like there's a lot of supply. So remember, GLS is not like immediate. Today I launch, tomorrow property will be built. Right? It won't work that way. So that's the reason why we study on supply a lot in terms of our entry into the property market. It's one of the key criteria that we use, one of the key indicator. So remember today, even these 3 sites, just take note. Today, government releases 3 lands. Developer will bid for it. After bidding for it, they will still need to submit documentation, everything for the pricing to be done. Then ultimately, when they get hold of the tender, then they can start building the property, and that by then 3 to 4 years down the road. So this supply will come in 3 to 4 years later. Okay, so this is something that we have to address and understand. So later on, I will share with you some key indicators using research data and numbers to give us more clarity. So one of the key things that I cannot run away with is the sentiment. Meaning today, even with these 3 GLS sites, okay, if you ask me, developer will also be a little bit more cautious. Okay, they will not bid anyhow and too high into each plot. But that says government also controls the value of the property, the site, the land. So there are cases, even Marina site, where the bid was too low by Quaco, right? If I'm not wrong, by Quaco, developer basically, the government basically reject the bid, say it's too low. And then they keep the land and relaunch it maybe in a later tender. So it's the same thing. There's a certain reserve price that government value every single land. And that is a very smart way to control pricing, because if they allow free play, then you and me, our property prices will be fluctuating, which is not what we want. So by controlling the land prices, developer, even if they bid, government still have a say to say that is this the right price that consumers can still purchase. So but I would say that this sentiment will kind of adjust a little bit, okay, in terms of pricing, whether of course, when developers bid a lower land, even if the government accepts that lower price, doesn't mean that they will sell cheap 4 years later, because, or no, should I say 2 years later? Maybe by 2 years later, right, everything becomes normal already and market goes up. Then they go in the market at a time where it's a little bit worrying. That's why they be able to get a better price. And when the market recovers, they sell at high price. So this is something that I want you to take note, because this is the exact strategy that today, how we as homeowners should also start looking at it. Okay, so a lot of our clients that work with us on a one-on-one basis, these are the things that we guide them to see it from another lens, see it from another perspective. Also, if you're thinking that the way that like me, developers may take this chance for the opportunity to acquire more land when there's fear and worry. Of course, you ask me, would they be 100% not worried? Cannot be. Sure worry, right? But at the same time, they also see the opportunity side. So remember, they are just like you and me. We all have fear, and we all are very careful in this time. That's why we need to be more sensitive to pricing. We need to be more selective in the kind of property you go for and your selection process. So if today you're just going in blind based on your budget, based on the location you want, then my warning to you is seek a second opinion. Okay, see whether is this the right path for you. Even entering the market, is it safe for you at this moment? Seek a second opinion so that you have addressed a lot of all these concerns, all these questions before you start doing it. Because when there's such a situation happening right now, the more you have to be more careful about how you position your property. Okay, in a good time, everybody go in quite easily because good time. But in a not so good time, you need to be extra careful. Also, kiasi mentality. Okay, so that is something that we need to look at. So the question is, if they release land, all this stuff, then will prices go up or down? Okay, so later on we'll study a little bit on is there really a lack of supply? Because everybody talk about, wow, there's so many properties out there. Is it an oversupply situation? You see, so at the moment during our research, right, what we see is that there's still a lack of supply, not only just in the private market, even in the HDB market. Okay, there's a lack of supply, and very fundamental is when there's not enough supply, what happened to price? Okay, price increase. So very simple, man. So besides the tariff situation, that's why we want to go back to the fundamentals. We want to go back to the basic. It's still considered supply and demand. So are there really supply? Are there really demand in Singapore? Why is Singapore still releasing land, still building property? Is because of the demand. Okay, it still comes back to the demand because our population rise to the first time over 6 million in 2024, the first time. Okay, and this is not by chance thing, or it actually delayed because our target was actually 2022, 2023 to actually hit 2020 to 2022 to hit that 6 million. Okay, but because of COVID, everything kind of slows down a little bit, but we are still on the right direction and right path because in 2012 white paper, our projection is that we need to have 6.5 to 6.9 million population by 2030. And that is how it will continue to substitute our economy to make us relevant, to make us competitive in the entire world stage. So for us, we have no raw materials. We don't have papaya tree, we don't have palm tree, we don't have oil, we don't have all this stuff. So the only thing that we can increase is what? Population. Because population is workforce. Workforce grows GDP. Simple as that. So today we are already in 6 million. So we have about 500,000 more or even 1 million more in the next 5 years to hit that target that Singapore determines that, hey, this is a right population number that can help our economy growth. So when there's more population, but if you don't have enough supply, when the supply is being hit because of all these concerns, tariffs, rising costs, developers will be a little bit concerned where their margins are, and they don't do property. They don't build property anymore, just like COVID. And we have witnessed it before. What happened to price? Okay, so price increase during that period is not just because of COVID. It's a fundamental lack of supply because there's no land. And if this continues for this tariff situation, I will believe that the limitations of developers will also be a concern, and they will also be very stringent in terms of their bidding of GLS land, which means when there's a low supply, prices eventually will go up. So volume-wise, will be targeted at different sites. So that one is for another video. So because government are also very careful, what are the implications? And that's the reason why already a task force has been set up to deal with all this. So the question is, besides these factors that are more tangible, that means you can touch, you can see your construction cost, your building materials, GLS site, you can see it tangible. But what about the confidence? The confidence of you, like? What about you as a homeowner? What about you as a buyer? What is your confidence then? So in this report from Property Guru, right, they highlighted the second half of 2024, the sentiment for consumer actually went up. Okay, 1 in 2 intend to buy a property in the next 5 years. And of course, this was during 2024. What happens during then? During then, interest rates came down. Okay, and it was a post-COVID situation where economy is slowly recovering. Wow, everything seems to be a rosy. Wow, then interest rates came down, then everybody come back into the property market. And that's the reason why during November, when the 6 launches continuing until this year, January, February, right? The launches are sold very, very well. About Elta, Ori, Uptown, and then in November during that period was what? EOK, Chuan, Napa, all this done very well in terms of their sales. And it's because of the sentiment. But right now, what do you think the sentiment will be? Come share your comments. No, no right or wrong answer. Or what is the sentiment you find? Okay. So today, you just remember, even in November during that period, the prices are high. The prices are high. But because the sentiment is very positive, people still go back into the marketplace. Okay. So ultimately, why we still will buy, regardless of the market condition, because we still need a roof over our head. And majority of us, we need a roof. All right. While the demand, everybody is saying it's crazy. So many people buy, how can new launches be sold like crazy? But it goes back to still the fundamental. Okay. Yes, the tariffs will definitely have certain concerns and fear, but if you need a property, you need to upgrade, you need to move because of schools, you need to buy bigger unit because of your family size increases, you will have to still buy. It's just whether do you do it now or do you do it later. Okay. So that's how we want to make sense of where the market moving. And that's how we also want to see, can you ride on this opportunity presented? Or you will basically take a step back, sit on the sidelines, and watch it go past. So my role is to project earlier so you can ride on the market on the right path. Okay, instead of just seeing other people do, then you question yourself why you never do, why you're not involved. Or when you see it happening, you say, 早知道, meaning wow, I should have done it last time. Okay, so that is always a regret statement we always hear. But the question is, because you haven't got your fundamentals right, you are guessing yourself into the market, and that's the reason why you're fearful whenever there's news like this happen. Also, this is very crucial, and you all need to stay on the video because I will share key indicators on what are the things as homeowners or investors we should take note of, even in a so-called semi-crisis like this, that we need to be overly prepared. So no doubt with this tariff situation, confidence will dip. Okay, confidence will dip one. Cannot be everybody say happy-go-lucky. And we have seen it before. Okay, the recovery will be a bit slower, but nothing is concrete because things can be reversed again, and then the sentiment goes up. So it's kind of yo-yo lah. So I don't prefer to always look at all this sentiment. Yes, it does have some impact, but once we go back to the foundation and the fundamentals of how we look at properties, right, regardless of the market up or down, right, it's still very safe. Okay, still very safe, and I can assure you. So one of the key things that why I dare to say that is because today you and me were all playing merry-go-round. Largely, the numbers of home ownership in Singapore is very, very high. Okay, it has been over 80% back in 2010. And in 2020, the numbers went up to 95%. And right now, estimated, we're talking about more than 95%, more than 95, 96%. Why? Because the foreigners are not buying properties in Singapore. The numbers are very, very small. Because of last year's ABSD of 60%, now the foreigners are only 1.4%. And even without this 60%, the numbers are not crazy. It's all less than 5%. So sometimes when we hear people say, no lah, foreigners are buying our property lah, they are the one who make our prices increase, I also scratch my head lah. Yeah lah, you can say what you want, but the data don't show leh. Then who are the one buying? Actually, it's you and me. We are the one buying. I sell to you, you sell to me, you buy from another person. Because 90% of home ownerships are very stable. Okay, you and I, we are very stable. You won't want to sell your property in 300,000 losses, even if the market comes down, right? You won't sell, man. You will just continue hold that property because you and I, we got liquidity, one, we got the power to hold one. So what are the others talking about? Oh, they want prices to crash. They want prices to come down. Sometimes I also don't know how to explain because you believe what you believe, right? Oh, but definitely basing on this, right? That's when we do our research for our clients, we go deeper, we will be able to kind of use the amount of supply and the demand situation to guide our clients in the right direction, because there's a certain demographic shift in the past to now. Okay, we go so deep into even the age group, what kind of property you should look for so that your next purchaser, who you're going to sell to, you have the right target audience. So these are a lot of details that we do to make sure that our risk is being lowered. Okay, because what happened is a lot of homeowners, when we buy property, we just go in blindly based on two factors. My budget, my location, or maybe the third one, I like or I don't like. Okay, we're not saying that these three components are not important, but what if you have another set of framework to support what you want and to kind of understand some areas where you're not so sure of, maybe you can get more clarity before you make a decision. So that's very important. So moving forward, I want to kind of touch on a little bit on the historical lessons that we can learn from. Why? Because what happened in the past may not 100% constitute to what is going to happen now or into the future. But the history and the past of how we react to all these crises is a learning lesson that we can learn from, because we want to learn from people's mistake, so that we can avoid them totally, right? And we also want to use the history to pinpoint what are the successful indicators that we can adopt in today's market. So that can give us a better blueprint. Because if you don't have this and you just blindly go into the marketplace, who will be safer? You will be safer, or I will be safer when we start looking at it. All right. So that's how we want to use history to kind of understand. And one of the key concern you and I, we always have whenever there's a crisis, whenever there's all these things happening, is recession. The big word is we are always worried about recession. Okay. So recession is a big word, but every other year we've been talking about recession since 2016. Okay, we've been talking about it for over and over again. Whenever there's a big news in the papers, we say, "What, recession coming?" Then after that, things like back to normal. Yeah, another one hit. Recession coming. Then you stop buying property. You never enter the market. So nothing wrong. Like I say, is because of the knowledge gap that you don't have. That's why you don't see it on a bigger picture. So every other year also got certain negative news, and it's a matter of how well you control your fundamentals that allows. So I want to show you certain things that I witnessed, okay, certain things that I realized why a lot of homeowners, they tend not to look at property, because it's not that easy to understand. That's one, and you don't have the time. So there are three things that I always believe homeowners you want to do. You want to enter the market, you want to grow your wealth through property, you want to buy multiple properties, but you lack three things. Okay, you all can write down. The first thing is you lack time. Okay, because you don't have the time to do proper research. After work, you go back home, your family time, your work time, even if you can do, it's only on the surface. So you don't have time to actually look into property deeply. Second, you don't have the resources. Okay, you may be piecing out certain information here and there from YouTube, maybe even from this video. Then you go newspaper, go URA website, you pull out certain random information, and then you try to piece them up together. Also, second thing is your resources accurate or not? So that's something very scary, because if you look at the wrong information, then you are getting a wrong outcome. The third thing that I realize homeowners lack is you don't have access. Okay, you don't have access to the right information, and you don't have access to live information. Okay, that's very important. Because without live data, what you are seeing perhaps potentially is 3 months ago. Whatever information that you're getting could be 2 weeks ago. So there's a lot of this kind of adjustments that why homeowners work with us, because we are able to give them not only the now strategy, but if the market has already shifted, you will not know one, because only people like us on the ground, we can know, hey, the market already shifted. All right, so last 1.5 years, we already advise a lot of our clients to start disposing their property, okay, so that they can enter the market since last year to catch on the cycle, right? And imagine if you have not done it and you see other people do it already and everything plays on papers, wow, positive market, everything, then you start doing it, it's already too late. Or it's already too late. So our role is to be a partner with you together to give you insights that you can perhaps act a little bit earlier than others. So I want to draw your attention to how we study property. So because of the common denominator of you and me, that we are always fearful. Okay, we are always fearful. And what are we fearful about? We are fearful about this. Asia financial crisis dropped 40%. We are also worried that dot-com and SARS crisis came down 20%. And we are worried that global financial crisis will happen again, that it dropped 25%. So this is what we will see. And we're also concerned that when cooling measures came in, it actually dropped over 12%. But what you don't see is the rebound. When it dropped 40%, it came up 40% in a short period of time. When it came down 20%, it went up 58%. And when it came down for financial crisis, went up 62%, which is almost 3 times. Because we tend to only look at the negative, which is normal for humans. But why am I showing you this? Because the rebound in the past has been crazy in comparison. Okay, 2 times, 3 times, that kind of situation, which spells also a concern, because in the past it was a very much speculative market. Okay, very much speculative market. Until when? Until this time comes, which is the 2013 cooling measures came in. Also, if you can see all these yellow color one, these are all cooling measures implementations that government try to curb the market, but none of the cooling measures work until the 2013 one. And this has direct impact to our affordability, how we buy, how we borrow, what's our loan ability, everything. So that's where your TDSR, LTV, ABSD, SSD, everything comes in during this time. And that's how we see a slight drop in terms of the property index. So then why are we still always talk about the concern about property prices coming down? Because we are worried about this. We are worried about this kind of factors happening. But I want to draw attention is to see today, you must understand 2013 cooling measures is we implement ourselves. Okay, Singapore implement ourselves. The economy was actually doing well, but the government sees that, hey, the property prices a little bit overheated. That's why they come in cooling measures to curb it. So because of that, right, if you can see versus world events, okay, versus world event, and these are all in the past, our drop in terms of using cooling measures was actually what, only 12%. And not only that, Brexit was also happening during that period. Okay, it was also happening during that period. And this was the Europe debt crisis. Okay, so there was also this crisis, but at the same time, we have cooling measures, but our amount only dropped about 12%. Okay, 11 over percent. Why is this so? Okay, so my research shows us based on data and all the analysis that we've done, right? It's because of COVID. I'll not say COVID, sorry, 2013 cooling measures. Because in the past, it was a speculative market. There is no control in terms of your overall loan, your LTV, your TDSR. There's nothing of such. So I can borrow 90%. I can put in a very small down payment. I can overnight buy 5 properties and I don't pay any ABSD. So people can over leverage. They can speculate a lot. But when the prices tank, just like all these 3 major events, right? They cannot pay off. They don't enough to pay, and then what happened? Prices go, they call it fire sale, or not, bankrupt, or go back to auction. So that is what happened in the past. So in the past, if you ask me, I always call it the cowboy days. Or yes, you can make a quick buck, definitely. And we have clients who have went through this cycle, and that's how they own multiple properties. And right now, basically, they don't need to work anymore. But there's also a lot of people who suffered during that period. So my family is one of them who went through this situation and went on with a wrong advice, and that's how my family was being complicated during that. So we went through this cycle before, but then if you start looking after 2013, okay, things are a little bit different. So even with Brexit, with cooling measures, our property index only came down about 11.6%. Then what happened? Prices went up 9.6% faster in shorter period of time. So government always not to crash the market with cooling measures. It's always to what? Stabilize it. That's all. So when the government sees that, hey, it's crossing double digit, right? That's when they will come in another cooling measures. So that's where you can see another cooling measures came in. And then what? Prices starts to come down a little bit. But this time around, only 0.7%. And all this while, right, the US-China trade war was going on. Okay? And prices still continue to increase. And then the North Korea missile crisis came in. Hey, prices still continue to increase. Because fundamentally, you today, if you want to buy a property, if you don't have minimum 30% of the purchase price, right, of cash and CPF, right, you don't even think about property anymore. And even based on your loan, your borrowing capability, your LTV is now 55%. You see, so that is something that you need to be extremely careful about. You need to be worried to know that, because now our outreach, or not say our outreach, meaning our acquiring of a property requires so much more ability, not only just in loan, also in terms of your funds. Those who actually have the ability to do it, do you not think that they have a lot of backup? Do you not think that they will have their safety nets built already? That's why they are very safe to enter the market. So this is something you need to really study. In the past, I don't dare to say so lah, because in the past are all speculative. So even if I no money, okay lah, I put in 10%, doesn't matter ma. If I have $100,000, I can buy 10 properties, or that kind of situation. Or 1 million, I can buy 10 properties of 1 million each, because I spread out my risk, ma. But that's over leveraging already. So even with the world events going on, you can see that the dip that comes is actually a very short period of time, but the jump, the rebound is crazy. So this is the time where COVID happens, right? So while the actual situation was there's a lack of supply, because during COVID there's no GLS land being released. That's why it constitutes to a lack of supply. But also the pent-up demand is what pushes additional maybe 7 to 9% in terms of our property prices. Okay, that's where we are right now, and we're seeing everything so high. So the key thing is that when the government realized after COVID, the pent-up demand, prices escalated, they also tried to cool it with cooling measures. But what happened? The effect, very minimum, very minimum effect. Or they came out multiple cooling measures. Then overall prices still increase. Of course, it's slower increase, and which is a good thing, because if it goes up too high, then they may impact another major cooling measures. And every cooling measures, a lot of people are always hoping, wow, cooling measures come in, prices will come down, then I can buy. So let me share with you, if you go and track every cooling measures, is it only making it harder for you to buy property? Okay, is it harder for you to buy property with every cooling measures? So this is something that we also have to acknowledge, because while there are always all these world events going on, we're not saying that I'm not saying that there's no impact on us. There's definitely impact. But we still need to fundamentally look at Singapore, because we are small enough, we are agile enough, we are able to see what are the key factors and indicators that allow us to still continue riding on certain opportunities, especially in the property market, and we can still be safe. So this is something that I'll also be sharing a lot more in the next video that I'll be doing, because in the next video, I'll be showing you real examples, real examples of what happened, and even my own portfolio that I bought during a crisis time, as what you call it. Okay, I'm going to share with you my own portfolio. I'm going to show you what are my thoughts. Okay, what are my thoughts when I do it? Am I fearful? Why is it that I still dare to enter into the market? There must be certain indicators that I use, not just guessing lah, because it's not also, because I got extra money. It's not. It's really using facts, using numbers, because numbers cannot lie, to guide us to make an informed decision, especially in crisis like this. Because no matter what, if let's say you have entered the property market when Brexit was going on, example, there are so many different things going on in between. And if you have just hold on to your property will have already increased at least 30%. Would already increase 30%. And this is what we have been seeing, because ultimately there are always crises going on, and this is the property market, private property market. There are definitely dips, but eventually, on the long run, it is still a long-term growth. Okay, so this is something we have to acknowledge. And the same goes for HDB. HDB also there are dips during this. Okay, even Europe debt crisis where the Brexit is happening, then what happened? Things are still going upwards. So this is something that we have to acknowledge, that looking at trends. Of course, if you are saying that today you are looking at a mid-term kind of model, then that one the more the research you need to look at it. Okay, because property ultimately is not as liquid, so you cannot say you buy today, you want to sell tomorrow kind of approach. There are certain time involved, there's certain duration we need to hold on to the property. The question is, how long should we hold on to the property if we buy a property in such times like this today? So these are all the things that we do with our one-on-one consult with our clients to understand better. So some interesting fact, let me just share with you all. So if we are looking at security, because we are all looking for the silver lining of security, how this is going to pan out for the US situation to Singapore. And I pull out what happened in the last Trump administration. Okay. And of course, it ended in a year when COVID hits, or when COVID hits its peak. Hey, but the subsequent price movement actually is still on an upward trend. Still on an upward trend. So these are quite key thing that when we look at it. That's why a lot of people always say that when there are certain crises happening, then prices will become stagnant. But overall, things will still rebound back. And for during this period, right, our private property new launch market actually went from 1,005 per square foot to about 2,000 square foot. This is during the time. Okay. And then of course everything continued to go up from here. Okay, that's why, because market was getting better, recovery from COVID, interest rates came down, everything goes. So I don't foresee this kind of growth moving forward, even with this US tariff situation. But it will not be like downward spiral. It will not be. It's just going to be slower, and which is a good thing, or which is a good thing I can share with you. So this is for new launch market. For resale, it shows the same thing. It also went out on a upscale, although slower. Okay, and prices we are seeing from $1,300 per square foot. It jumped to about $1,004 per square foot. Of course, this is on average, or it's not particular to any project. And what about the HDB? HDB, of course, it was a little bit more muted, but at the same time, it also went up over period, okay, over time, because of the lack of supply. People want to buy, but there's not enough supply in the marketplace. That's why they still have to go and buy other resale properties at a higher pricing. So this is something that I think is very important. And one of the key reason why we want to study some of the history is so that we can make better decisions today. And so what are some of the key things that homeowners should be careful about? Because what you see is this kind of thing. Of course, now we are seeing a little bit green, or as of the recording, things are getting a little bit green. So yes, talking about local banks rates, local developer rates. So you need to also understand from a macro variable, will all this also affect their thinking? Will it affect their strategies? But also remember, there's always the rebound, because now we have a 90-day pause. Will this spike certain form of confidence back into the marketplace in such a short period of time? We have to wait and see. Or will you prefer those kind of up down, then you get heart attack kind of situation? Okay, so because I'm a property guy, okay, so I only do property, I don't do stocks, I don't do anything else. So I spend a massive number of time to research and my time on it. Why? Because my money is inside the market. So I also need to make right decisions, not only just for my clients, for myself also. Why? How can I say that my clients do it and I don't do it? All right, that's why our property are very well invested in Singapore, and also very current. It's not like 10 years ago, it's not 15 years ago, it's as current as just last year. Okay, we sold and then we bought another one, and now we are re-entering the market again. So we are very always constantly updating ourselves. What are the strategies, looking at all this? In a way, in a selfish word, is because I'm doing the research for myself. So my clients benefit also, because whatever I research, they can benefit and they can get the latest update, because I want to enter the market. You see? So of course, why we do it? Because we don't want to be a jack of all investments. So I want to focus on just one asset. Property is the one. and then we can be extremely good at it, that we know the ins and outs, we know how to maneuver around it when situation like this happens. So I just want to give every one of you some heads up. There are definitely a lot of noises in the stock markets. Okay, so it will be a up and down, yo-yo, definitely. So you have to ask yourself, if let's say today you are already invested in stocks overnight, it plunges 40%. Of course, now it went back up another maybe 25%, 28%. You know, can you hold on to this kind of high attack mode? Okay, so majority of the investors I met, of course, they're holding it for long term. But the paper loss also quite stressed. Also quite stressed. Okay, we're not saying that you shouldn't do it. Okay, but what I'm saying is that perhaps this is the time where you want to look at diversifying your portfolio a little bit. Okay, to look into property, to have a hard asset, to kind of hedge over certain inflation. And no matter what, the common understanding is property won't go down to zero value. It will not. So it's just a matter of how long you hold it, what is your holding power going to be. All right, so because of these noises, some of you may be looking at, oh, then I should go back into stocks to buy because it's low. Also correct. But we don't know what's the news going to be, whether it will go lower or not. So there's always the risk. Yes, it will definitely rebound, but how long will it be? So this is something. And if today you are in the property market, it's the same as I advise for some of my clients, right? You may not need to rush into the market. Okay. So we still need to study the fundamentals first, and you must get the fundamentals first before you react. So slow is fast. Okay, at this time. Okay, cannot be anything you just jump into it. Why you want to chong inside? Because why? Because a lot of people who keep sharing, right? When there's fear in the market, there's also a lot of opportunity and you must strike. Okay, got hear before, right? Unless you're Warren Buffett lah. If you're not him, how are you going to react? Okay, so he always have a foresight. Or of course he holds most of the investments, maybe also manipulating, we also don't know. Okay, this one here say only, I'm not in politics. Okay, it's just my own views. But anyway, we are not him. So the fundamental idea is correct. When people are worried, we should enter the market. But you also cannot just based on this one statement and then, oh, because Warren Buffett said I go in, pump. There's you cannot be any crisis also anyhow buy, right? So there's a certain indicators that over the years that I've developed using our REI method to help us look at crisis in a different light. Okay, so part of the research that we do is what I've shared with you today. And that's why you all must follow me through for video 2, because that's where we will go in even deeper with real case studies, with even more indicators of how we look at property. But of course, today, if you have a need, not a want, you have a need, perhaps an upgrading of size. Okay, because your current place is too small, or you have a newborn, you need more space. You may want to shift house because of schools, you need to stay nearer. Or perhaps you have excess of funds that you have unlocked the last couple of months from stock market. If you have done it and you have this excess of funds even from other investment, crypto, and then potentially this excess funds you want to reload into the market, then now could be a good choice for you to redeploy them. Okay, because we can never catch the low to enter the market, and we can never catch the high to exit the market. But what we want to do is to have certain parameters that we can ensure that, okay, this checklist safe, let's do it. So some of you, maybe you already done a lot of your research, maybe for the past, since couple of months, since last year, and you keep missing out on new launches because your ballot number just cannot make it. And then now it comes to this time, you suddenly, I think lucky I never buy. How many of you got think that way? Or maybe you want to reassess to see is, because the moment when you start having that thought, then chances are you're actually gambling your way into the property market. So some things I really cannot get it. Maybe some of you can share with me, what are your thoughts if you go ballot after ballot and your numbers are no good, but yet you just throw your check to every single project, hoping that you can get a good ballot number, and then you just buy. Maybe you can share with me your thought process, because I really like to understand psychologically why you are doing that. Because in my own view, like I said, this is my own view, it's like you're tikam, you're tikaming not for the project, you're tikaming based on your queue number. Then it's like, if my number is very good, then I buy law, even that if the project is not so good. Then I think, I don't know, kind of disconnected. How many of you agree? How many of you? I mean, I really like, if any one of you have this thought, do share with me. Okay, I sincerely want to understand so that I want to work out maybe a different formula to be able to help you assess your decision making better. See, and if today you have a need, like what I mentioned, it's also good to seek a second opinion because things have changed. It may not be as crazy or drastic as how everybody think it will be, but there's still certain worry, certain fear. So we want to be a little extra careful. And when you can put in extra parameters to kind of check back to support some of the things that you wanted to do, I think that can help you make a better decision. Okay, because ultimately property is a what mid-term to a long-term arrangement, and you need to hold on to that and write out any certain market conditions possible. So in the next video, I'm going to share with you my own personal portfolio where how I reduce my risk in this kind of situations. Okay, and what are the key indicators I've used that have helped me overcome regardless of the market condition. So you must really just follow the channel, subscribe to the channel, like the video, anything you can do so it can help me also. And more people can also know. And turn on the bell notification. So when I do the next video, you'll be notified immediately. So some of the fundamental signals I see, right, based on this, on a very basic overview, the most at risk would likely be industrial, okay, because of supply chain cut off. And the office will definitely still have, because if the market is not at favor, a lot of the companies will move up from Singapore back to their own country to set up so that, of course, everything is lower. Yeah, that's the commercial and commercial side. But for residential, I believe the fundamentals are still very strong based on supply and demand. The movement are not going to be as crazy. It will be slow. I cannot doubt that. It will be slower. It will not be as quick as the last couple of years. It will be slightly slower, but it will not be prolonged. Okay, ultimately, we will wake up one day and then we just go back straight into the market again, which is usually what happens. Or give ourselves 4 months. 4 months to 6 months maximum. Okay, so this is what I foresee. So today, if you're owning on to any residential property, perhaps this is a good time for you to do a review. Okay, so whenever there's a crisis, yes, there's certain opportunities out there, but you want to be prepared first. Also, I've been very busy with the team to do a lot of reviews with our clients to kind of rework out their portfolios. Are there any adjustments they should do? So if you have nobody that does this for you, and you can always reach out to us to give you a second opinion on what potentially you can or cannot do. Or in the next video, what I'll cover is the first thing is what the developers are doing differently. Because of this shift, we are already researching on what are the anticipation. Okay, we want to look forward. We want to pre-plan ahead on their developer strategies. Okay, are they going to delay their projects? Are they going to adjust pricing? Are they going to scale down their plans? Are they not going to bid on GLS land anymore? Are the plans of the developers going to change because of this? All right, so we're going to study that a little bit. And also, is there a moment of opportunity? Is there really opportunity or not? Or everybody talk about can buy just anytime, anyhow buy also can. So we want to discuss some of the cautious different markets and how they will present the best opportunities for us. And that's where I will share with you the key indicators of my own case studies and how I enter the market and how I exit the market. Okay, very, very important. The third thing that will go on is where should I put my money? So even if I have access, I want to enter the market. I want to capitalize on this opportunity perhaps, or maybe I want to ride on this wave. Where should I go? Where are the promising areas, regardless of the market situation, I should enter into? So these are some of the things that I'll cover in the next session. We can, whenever there's a new video, you get notified immediately to follow us through. All right, with that, thank you so much. I'll see you guys.